This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeff Malinoff, and with me, as always, is Mark Souza. We have some NBA trade deadline news to talk about, as well the Clippers and Lakers both have made trades in the last 24 hours, and as well, Anthony Davis talks have been a little more interesting as it progresses. Also going to talk about LeBron and one of his biggest loss in his career, which is saying something, as well as the fans chanting during that game to his teammates, which is also pretty entertaining to discuss. And anything else that needs to be discussed, probably more on the long lines of football news or any other news we will discuss. But right now, it's NBA news that's really taken over the show because we are 24 hours away from the trade deadline ending, or 28, 29 hours. And if you want to be specific. But we are very close to the trade deadline, and we've already made some moves. We'll start with the biggest trade so far, as Tobias Harris has been traded from the Clippers to the 76ers for a pretty impressive trade, if you ask me. In response, they got a couple of players back, the Clippers did, but they get a 2020 first-rounder and the 2021 unprotected first-round pick from Miami, and 2 second-round picks. So what are your thoughts on this Tobias Harris trade?
I think it makes a lot of sense for both teams. Obviously, the Sixers, their aspirations of making it to the NBA Finals, I think, improved big time with the addition of Tobias Harris. You have now a big four, quote-unquote, with Embiid, Simmons. You added Jimmy Butler earlier this season. Now you add Tobias Harris. It just makes this team more formidable, especially now. You could run a lineup out there with those four guys on the court that makes you extremely athletic. You added a little bit of shooting with Butler and definitely with Tobias Harris. I just don't see the downside at all for the Sixers in this trade. They gave up players that are expendable, I believe, and it sets you up for the future too, because the Sixers do have a chance to keep all four of these guys around for a few years. As we know, Simmons still on that rookie deal. So this can be great for the short term and really good for the long term. And, the picks they give up, I'm not too worried about it because I don't necessarily think that either one of those picks will be high, especially not the Sixers pick. I don't know about Miami.
I think Miami might. I don't know because 2021 is still a couple of years away. But I could see that being a lottery pick because I can see like another team passing them when it comes to playoffs positioning. And it could be a small chance for a high pick. I think that's a pretty good bet if you ask me. But overall, I will say that Tobias Harris goes from an 8-seed team to an Eastern title contender in the 76ers, because now you have Embiid, now you have Simmons, who's playing very well, Butler, of course, and now you have Harris as your big four, quote-unquote. And, of course, Harris and Butler's contracts are expiring at the end of the season, and it looks like they're hoping to get both those guys back. So I think they have a good chance of getting those guys back. Do you see Butler and I can see Harris returning, but do you see Butler returning to make this four stay as they are?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. And if for some reason they can't keep both, they could still be active in free agency.
Mm-hmm. I'm thinking Harris is almost like I'm saying like Harris is 99%. Butler is the one that's going to be interesting to me the most, honestly, because he's always been a question mark ever since they traded for him earlier this season from the Timberwolves. He's always been a question mark of if he will stay with the 76ers by end season or not.
Yeah. So I think this move is great for their chances this year, though, as I think if they weren't in the conversation of Eastern Conference champions, I think they now are with this addition.
Oh, absolutely.
This move might put them higher than the Bucks and the Raptors. It could possibly catapult them higher than those two teams right now. It definitely, I think, separates them and the Celtics.
Well, looking at the standings right now, if we're gonna go that we're out. Both Bucks and Raptors have 39 wins. Philadelphia has 34 wins, so they're roughly 5 games behind them. So they could go on a run at the moment with the addition of Harris, no doubt about it. And I mean, the Pacers have, even without Oladipo, they've won 3 straight so far after their blowout win against the Lakers. So they still are a good team even without Oladipo. But again, they still have a long ways to go. But I can see it happening. I mean, Harris is a huge addition. He's been playing amazing for the Clippers, so it can only benefit the 76ers in this situation.
Yeah, and I think right now the Sixers are closer to representing the East in the championship in the finals than they were yesterday. Big time. I think it's just a big-time move. I did find it interesting, though, that Tobias Harris – he just sank a game-winning shot last night.
Yeah, I saw that.
And then he's traded just hours, maybe even minutes after the game.
He's getting dressed, and the coach goes, "Hey, what's up, buddy? Great game. Thanks, coach. Yeah, you're no longer on the team." What?
For the Clippers, they obviously are giving up on this season. They had a good season, but I do think this is smart for them to kind of think about the future. Remember, they will be going after the Kawhi Leonards of the world this summer. They'll be going after guys like Durant. They'll be going after,
seems to me that Kawhi's going there regard. I think that's like 95% if I had to make a percentage on that. It seems like that's his ideal place in theory.
I mean, no one really knows what Kawhi wants. He's
a quiet guy.
Yeah, it's actually, of all the free agents that will be testing the market, I think he's the hardest one to read at this point. Nobody really knows. But regardless, the Clippers will have the opportunity to go after a max player. They'll be able to go after a guy like DeMarcus Cousins. They'll be able to go after a guy like Kawhi Leonard, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, et cetera, Kemba Walker also. And
this is a very interesting free agency for sure.
They acquire these draft picks, and if they would have made the playoffs, they would have lost their first-round pick. So they get their first-round pick by not making the playoffs. So they get that back. They also add these 2 picks. You talked about the Miami unprotected pick. We don't know what will happen. Maybe that will be a great pick. It could possibly
be a good pick. It's in 2021, so we don't know yet. But it's still a possibility because I don't see the Heat getting better anytime soon, and I can see other teams behind them getting better. So
yeah,
I could see that being a potential good pick in the long run.
It makes a lot of sense for the Clippers.
It's weird seeing the 76ers trade first-round picks because they're usually the opposite. They trade for picks, they don't trade against their picks. But I know they're in a winning situation now. There's no more process. This is a team that can win a championship in theory. So
maybe that's a sign that the process is working.
I think people
after
were already
years of trust the process.
Oh, so yeah, I understand. Like they used to be the joke of the NBA. Now they're legitimate contenders. But again, this all comes down to it's not about winning the East. It's about if you win the East, how are you going to do against the Warriors?
Maybe there is something to this whole tanking thing, right? The Sixers did it for 4 years in a row, and they came out pretty good.
Well, they're going to try to switch that up with the 14% now for the bottom 3 teams. So it's still there's still ideals for tanking, but they're less attractive than they used to be. So maybe they're different now, but who knows?
Yeah, it's just funny because, I know people don't like it. People don't like to see their teams lose on purpose and all that, and I understand. It's frustrating as a fan, but when you look at a team like the Sixers, you realize, that's why they do it.
Was the wait worth it, quote unquote? But we don't know if the process even worked because
I think it's already shown to be worth it, right?
Yes,
they're set up for.
But I think the process officially is like it's to win a championship, and that's still to be determined.
Yeah, but just because you don't win the championship doesn't mean you didn't. It wasn't worth it. The fact that they have set their team up to be a contender for the next 4 or 5 years, that's pretty good.
If it wasn't for the Warriors being this dominant, I would say this team would have a very good chance of winning the championship this year. But again, I think every team's just preparing not for their own playoff positioning per se, but just to beat the Warriors if they meet them in the playoffs. If that makes sense. Because when it comes down to it, that's the team everyone has to face eventually. Like, that's the team everyone needs to beat eventually. When it comes down to getting to a championship and winning a championship, it's still the Warriors' league.
Yep. So this summer, the Clippers become an interesting destination. There was a lot of people who thought they wouldn't be keeping Tobias Harris anyways, that they'd be looking at a guy like Kawhi Leonard, maybe someone else. So if they really thought, hey, we can make this trade, acquire some assets, and still potentially get the free agent that we want this summer, I mean, that makes all the sense in the world. I totally see where the Clippers are coming from here. Are their fans happy about it? Probably not right now, but I think they will be in the summer when they do land a star player.
They probably will, but
They will. There's only so many teams that can get one. The Clippers will get one. It just depends who it will be. But regardless, you get a star player, plus you get draft picks. So it makes all the sense in the world. Plus now Philadelphia won't be in the market to acquire someone like Kawhi or a different star now that they kind of have their team set, and that makes sense in the world. But we got to talk about the Celtics. I think they're the biggest loser in this trade yesterday. I think they're the one team that has been kind of taking right hook after right hook lately, and last night's trade, hurts the Celtics because they were due to get the Clippers' first-round pick if the Clippers had made the playoffs. But now it looks like the Clippers have punted away the playoffs. Celtics may lose a pick.
Is it a Super Bowl record, 65 yards?
The Celtics will probably lose a pick. Remember, the Celtics also get the Sacramento Kings draft pick, which could potentially be worse now because the Clippers should fall below the Kings in the standings. We don't know if the Kings will fall themselves, but it could be potentially worse. So you lose a pick, you could lose the value of that last pick. It really hurts their chances of acquiring somebody like Anthony Davis or another star via trade in the summer this year. So it's interesting for them, man. A franchise like the Celtics, who looked like everything was going their way for a couple of years. They had all these assets, all these picks. They still have a lot of good things going for them, but it is kind of tough, I think, if you're a Celtics fan, to see a team like Philadelphia maybe pass you up. There's two other teams that are ahead of you right now.
Yeah, and not only are you losing picks and losing these great assets, you could be losing Kyrie Irving in the offseason.
Yep.
And that is a huge blow as well. So this team could go from being a contender for the foreseeable future to maybe being back at the bottom in the future.
And they're cap strapped. If they lose Kyrie, they are not going to be able to pick up a star free agent, so they'd have to do it via trade. So they'd have to give up assets.
It sounds like it would be like a Jason Tatum they would get rid of, and that's a huge blow if they have to get rid of him for a star player, supposedly.
Yeah, they might have to. They just might have to.
And Jason Tatum's a great player. I think he has great potential to be an all-star in this league. So that would be just a huge loss, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it would. Obviously, you wouldn't want to lose Kyrie and then have to trade young players like Jason Tatum for a guy like Anthony Davis. You'd rather have Kyrie plus either the current team now or Kyrie plus Anthony Davis if you are going to trade Tatum plus others. But it is interesting. It puts them in kind of a more precarious position than they were just at the beginning of this year. At least in the last 24 hours, I think their position has even gotten a little bit worse. But we'll see. We'll see. The deadline's coming up, so maybe the Celtics will try and make another move now. Maybe they'll try and trade Kyrie.
That's a wow. I didn't even think about that. I'm not sure they're actually going to fall because there's talks of that Celtics are confident that he's going to stay. Keyword maybe, but with that, I don't know what you could get for Kyrie. Maybe Anthony Davis in that situation, but again, it's like that seems like a place Anthony Davis does not want to go to, so it might be a problem for them if they want to go pursue him because he might not be there after next season. The season afterwards, yeah. So there is a lot of things the Celtics do have to think about, but I think if they need to win, it's now more than ever.
Or maybe they decide they aren't going to win this year, and they try and trade Kyrie for some other assets.
So they get in their own tank?
Not tank, but, I don't think the Celtics are one of the top 3 teams in the East right now.
Isn't that crazy to say? Because this beginning of this season, we're like, the Celtics are going to win this Eastern Conference.
Yeah, and Hayward hasn't recovered as well as many have hoped.
Of course, that injury was pretty severe, so it's not his fault. I'm not going to blame him for his play. That injury was way too severe for anyone to come back after one season, so I'm not going to say...
Yep, whatever the reasons are, it doesn't really matter. The fact is that the Celtics have not lived up to the expectations. It doesn't look like they're going to be able to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, let alone win the East. And certainly I don't think they could compete with the Warriors. Philadelphia, I think, is head and shoulders higher than them right now, in addition to the Bucks and the Raptors, and maybe even the Pacers, man. The Pacers are a good team. I know, they don't really have one star. They don't have a guy that, like Boston, you think of Boston, you think of Kyrie Irving, but, the Pacers are a good all-around team. So I'm not willing to just say the Celtics are easily better than the Pacers either, So that's at least 3, possibly 4 teams better than the Celtics in just the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, and this East is starting to get extremely competitive on the top of the seedings. Obviously, the bottom seedings aren't as competitive, but it looks to me that it would go to, if I had to pick an Eastern Conference champion right now, it would be between three teams in my mind, and that's the Sixers, the Bucks, and the Raptors. I wouldn't put the Pacers there. No offense to them. I think they're a great team, but I think they can't go in the long run. And as well as the Celtics just don't seem to have it at the moment. Mm-hmm. It's very disappointing. It's disappointing if you're the Celtics. Definitely, this is a season that's supposed to be the year. You know what I mean? This is the championship year. This is where everything's supposed to come together. And now they're looking at a very disappointing end to their season.
The Sixers also get Boban on our team, which makes him an interesting piece. Not too many 7'3" guys walking around that can block shots and defend in the paint if they need somebody like that. So, yeah, he's a small part of this trade, but again, just kind of something else to have another, I guess, tool in their tool belt for the Sixers as they try to navigate through the East. Yes.
And it seems like that's going to be that's the big Sixers trade deadline move. We're assuming there's going to be plenty of more moves tomorrow. I think usually the hours before the deadline ends, that's where trades get a little crazy and desperate. That's where we say, oh, what were they thinking? But again, we will see how that goes. It's weird to talk about the trade deadline and not talk about Anthony Davis, but he's not the topic right now. So that is a big change when it comes down to that topic. But let's say we take a little break and talk more about the NBA because we got some more interesting news to talk about. But first, I want to talk to you about investing. Because when investing and planning your retirement, it's always best to get advice from the experts. Best-selling author Harry Dent, America's #1 economist, says the dark window is open. There's an opportunity to rapidly boost your retirement savings before the greatest stock market crash in American history. But this dark window won't be open for long. You can make up to 10 times the annual average stock market gain in just a few short months. Find out more by going to www.harrydentforecast.com. There's a very short time to take advantage of this dark window. So once again, if you want to take advantage, go to www.harrydentforecast.com to learn more.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. Just finished talking about that big trade from the Clippers and Tobias Harris trade. Now let's move on to the Lakers. Not only did they have a trade for a certain Detroit Piston, we'll get into that in a little bit, but first I want to talk about their massive 42-point blowout loss to the Indiana Pacers. It was in a precedent 136-94, LeBron's worst loss of his career. And he showed he wasn't playing the best either with only 18 points, 7 rebounds, 9 assists. Not LeBron-esque numbers, but they're pretty positive numbers in general, but still not enough to be a great performance. And, of course, this is just... And the image that really spoke in my mind the most wasn't the chants, which we also will talk about because those were interesting, but how everyone was like... LeBron was at the end of the bench, and no one was sitting next to him.
Right. Yeah, that's the images are kind of getting a lot of buzz this morning as LeBron James was sitting where he normally sits because he does have a special chair for him. Like he has heating pads on it.
Is that true? I didn't know that part.
Yeah, he sits in the same chair every game. But
is no one allowed sitting on that chair either?
I don't know about that, but the interesting perspective is kind of how far everybody is away from him, including Rondo. Rondo's the one in that image that is the most interesting because he's actually sitting with the fans. He's not sitting... It
almost like he was avoiding him.
He's not sitting in a unoccupied seat next to LeBron. I know that there were a lot of Laker fans and other people coming to the defense of those images saying, well, the Lakers are making a substitution. There were players up from the bench, blah, 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 blah. But that was debunked as if you're watching the game or watching the video of that, I don't know, that sequence.
There were no subs.
It wasn't true. So, yeah, the Lakers were embarrassed, like you mentioned. It was the biggest loss in the history of LeBron James. And I'm pretty sure that stems from AAU all the way through.
I wouldn't, maybe, but that's probably true too.
I'm pretty sure. I'm willing to bet everything that's
everything.
True. Everything. If he suffered a 46-point loss before, I don't think that happened to even a 11-year-old LeBron James. I just don't buy it.
You do make up a good point. But granted,
he is a prodigy, So
yeah.
I'm sure he was the one laying those 46-point whoopings on some other kids, right? So
yeah, and this is a good point in where you're looking at just how his Laker career has been going so far. This kind of sums it up of how this game went, in my opinion. Like, this is maybe not the best move for him. Maybe the best move for him personally, like just living in LA and all that stuff, but as in a NBA perspective, this seems not be going so well for him. And also the fact that with everyone that went to the line, like a JaVale McGee, a Brandon Ingram.
Well, not JaVale McGee.
Oh, no. He's not good enough to be traded, right?
Right.
Yeah, they're chanting like, what was it, the actual chant? Like, you're not worthy, you're not trade worthy or something of that nature?
Ingram, amongst others, were...
Oh, not worth trading. McGee got a not worth trading chant, which is the meanest one.
Ingram, amongst others, were chanted,
LeBron will
trade you.
Which is pretty funny.
It's sort of the same cadence as the overrated chant. And but when JaVale McGee did step to the line, it was, you're not, what would they say?
You're not worth trading.
Not worth trading. Or
that
something
is probably the most hurtful one. That must be the words. Is that the most hurtful one, or LeBron will trade you? Which one would you rather not hear?
Yeah, it was interesting. It was a very college-like atmosphere in that stadium in Indiana.
Oh, Indiana was having a ball. They were loving this.
They were having fun because of the drama that's going on, plus the fact that their team was up big at halftime. It continued through the third quarter. It ends up being 136-94, and I'm not going to lie. I don't even think it was that close, like even what the score says. The score says it was a blowout. This game was over early in the third quarter. I don't know how the Lakers rebound for this because it seems like it's a confidence-shattering type of loss, plus the trade deadline and all the other stuff going on. Now,
did you see that play in like the midway through the fourth quarter? There was like 7 minutes and 30 seconds left, where Lance Stevenson, where Zubac was like right, or I forget who, maybe it wasn't Zubac, I'm not sure, but it was right at where the rebound is going to be, and Lance Stevenson just jumps like across the key and tries to get the ball and knocks him down and knocks the ball out of bounds. There was no one else around him, and Stevenson just tries to jump for this ball. I'll show you the video right here if you haven't seen it, because it's worthy to look at. It just sums up how the Lakers played that game, where there's nobody around. It was going right to the guy's hands, and Lance Stevenson just jumps in harm's way, tries to grab the ball, runs into his own teammate, and the ball goes out of bounds.
That's Wagner.
That was Wagner. I couldn't tell who it was at the time, but it was one of the most, like, are you kidding, Shaq in a fool plays I've ever seen. And that just sums up how this whole game went for the Lakers. Yeah, this game wasn't close, and Twitter also had a field day with this, with tons of memes of classic memes, just with LeBron. You know that one of like the guy looking at the girl holding the other girl's hand? There was an entire team with him holding hands and looking at Anthony Davis. So I thought that was the funniest one to me.
It almost feels like a trade needs to happen for the Lakers because of maybe the relationships going on now in that locker room, because everybody's like looking over their shoulder. Maybe, you know, the whole LeBron dynamic, him kind of running the roost, I guess you could say, may hurt the confidence of some of these young players. So I'm not sure what's going to happen with these Lakers. They should make the playoffs. I still think they will. But yeah, they got a tough stretch of games. I know we talked about it. We've talked about it lately, but they play, you know, the Celtics tomorrow night on the road. They play the 76ers this weekend on the road. I mean, those are two tough games, especially now with the 76ers adding Tobias Harris. Yeah, they could lose the next couple games easy. They do play the Rockets next week. They play the Pelicans. Their schedule does break up a little bit.
Maybe they'll try to sneak the Anthony Davis into the Lakers locker room that game.
It is interesting because they play the Pelicans back to back, or twice in 1 week.
Interesting. But as of right now, the Lakers are 500 at 27-27, and the 8th place Clippers are 30-25. So they got some work to do to move up. Definitely, they're still, you know, even the Sacramento Kings are ahead of them at 28-25. So they got some work cut out for them when it comes down to getting in the playoff picture.
They did make a trade though yesterday. They traded Mikhailicek for Reggie Bullock, which I think is a good trade.
Oh yeah, he's a good quality player that could definitely help this team.
He shoots 40% on catch and shoot threes, which is something that the Lakers don't have a lot of, and that helps.
They just don't have threes in general, so they just need someone that can actually shoot threes. You know?
They shot 19% from three last night, while the Pacers shot 55%.
That's just absurd, right? That shouldn't be a thing. And
so Reggie Bullock will help there.
Yes,
he's a cheap player. Like, he doesn't make a whole lot of money. So in terms of salary cap, he's not a problem. But again, he's an unrestricted free agent at the end of this season. So he's a short-term type player, short-term fix for them. Yeah, but I guess we do need to talk about the AD trade, and if it's off the table, as been reported. I am very skeptical about that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. What the rumors I've heard about, like, apparently there was talks of 8 first-round picks, which I didn't even know that was legal. I don't think it is. In retrospect,
you can't trade more than 4 first-round picks. I know that. That's a rule.
So I don't know what the deal was when it came to that idea. That was just the rumors we've heard. And also just they're asking for a ton. Like, even like 2 for the deal that the Lakers were offering, I understood. Like, it was like a lot of good quality players and 2 first-round picks. Then they asked for 4 first-round picks, and even I was like, okay, that's a little much, including the players.
I'm still skeptical on what the Pelicans asked for. The only trade scenario that I'm willing to say was real was the Lakers' first offer. The whole Pelicans are asking, counter-offering way too much, I don't believe is true. Plus there is a report that the Lakers haven't even received a counteroffer from the Pelicans, that they're waiting on it.
There's tons of rumors going back and forth right now, so we really don't even know what's going on. There's so many rumors, many
speculations. We do know that the Lakers offered them a trade that involved 2 first-round picks. We do know that the Pelicans don't have to trade him. So the Lakers can be frustrated all they want. Magic Johnson can be frustrated all he wants. But the fact is, they hold the player, and they weren't even thinking about trading him a week ago. Mm-hmm. So they don't have to trade him. So if anybody's like, oh, well, they don't like they're screwing up this deal, well, so what? It's their player. Yeah. They don't have to do anything.
If I had to make a guess, I'm thinking this is actually not going to make it by deadline, and this is going to go to the summer.
It possibly could. I think.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to see it actually going down with all the talk that's been going on.
I think they'll actually make the trade.
You think before the deadline?
Yeah, I think it'll get done, but I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, I'll say 51% is it'll happen. 49% it won't. But I mean, the Pelicans, there's no problem with them waiting. I mean, if you wait till the summer, you can probably get more back. You probably could, because a team like the Knicks, a team like the Celtics, those two teams will be able to offer a lot in the summer. The Knicks
so take advantage while you have this opportunity.
The Knicks might be able to offer a trade like Dennis Smith Jr., the first pick in the draft, and Kevin Knox for Anthony Davis, which would be very attractive. There you get Zion, you get Dennis Smith Jr., Kevin Knox. That's a nice start. Or Boston comes in with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and maybe a couple first-round picks. That's attractive. So
take advantage of this. Like, what are you risking if you're the Lakers? What are you willing to give up right now? Like, how high of a price?
If I'm the Lakers, I'm willing to give up everybody on my roster other than LeBron James. I mean, they signed LeBron James to win a championship. They didn't sign LeBron James to build for the future. So, they got to get rid of all their young players and a couple first-round picks, and you do it. And then you get Davis, you get LeBron, and then this summer you make a third. You get a third star. You get somebody like Kyrie, you get somebody like DeMarcus Cousins. It makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And looking overall, like you said, if the Lakers want to win now, they have to make this trade. But again, the cost is going to be extremely pricey. So, there's got to be some sort of what's the word I'm looking for? There's got to be some sort of limit that you got to maybe pass that limit of what you're comfortable with giving up to win now. So that is all up to the LA Lakers and what they want to do. But I would not be surprised if they do not make the trade before the deadline and they wait and see what they can get in the off season. But in the summer, it's going to be, like you said, there's going to be other teams vying for Anthony Davis. But we will see how everything goes because we have 24 hours left for the deadline. We got some time to see what happens. But you say they're going to make the trade. I say they don't, but we will see.
Yep. I think the Lakers are more motivated than ever to make the trade now, just because it seems like that locker room might be, I guess, dysfunctional now with what's going on. Everybody kind of looking over their shoulder. I mean, it's not often that a team has pretty much everybody in the locker room except for one guy being talked about being traded. Like, it is weird to think like pretty much 11 or 12 players are all available for trade except for the one guy over there. So it makes it awkward, makes it interesting. But I do think that the trade for Reggie Bullock by the Lakers is a solid trade. 40% again on catch and shoot threes. That's big time. I mean, LeBron needs that kind of player around him. He needs. It was funny because we saw them like mash up a bunch of random players in free agency. Rondo, Beasley, Wentz, Stevenson, JaVale McGee. Like, what is this? This is a weird roster construction, and it hasn't worked. It hasn't been working. Sure, they have some games where they win and they look good because they have LeBron James on the team. But in terms of long term, I mean, those aren't the type of players that you want to surround LeBron with. You need shooters. You need players that can hit open shots, as LeBron has the basketball, not guys like Lonzo Ball and other guys who can't really shoot. So We'll see what happens.
There's actually a funny post. Someone, it's called Not Sports Center. If you don't follow them on Twitter, you should. They're pretty funny guys. But this is, in their latest Anthony Davis trade offer, the Lakers have offered Lonzo Ball, Kuzma, Ingram, Rondo, Stevenson, Michael Beasley, Kobe Bryant, Todd Gurley, Mike Trout, Wayne Gretzky, some guy sitting in traffic, your mom, and 2 first-round picks.
Yep.
Which sounds about right.
Anyways, we got to take a break. And then when we come back, we'll talk about a record that Russell Westbrook has tied in the NBA. Also, Nick Foles, the latest on him, and Major League Baseball talking about some major rule changes, and, of course, a crazy story involving a mountain lion and a runner. We'll talk about that when we return. But before we do that, when investing and planning for your retirement, it's always best to get advice from the experts. Best-selling author Harry Dent, America's #1 economist, says, "The dark window is open. There's an opportunity to rapidly boost your retirement savings before the greatest stock market crash in American history. But this dark window won't be open for long. You can make 10 times the annual average stock market gain in just a few short months." According to the research of renowned Harvard economist Harry Dent, though, this window could slam shut later this year, and nobody on Wall Street is expecting it. This dark window is something bigger by far than anything he's predicted up to this point, and you can make 10 times the annual average stock market gain. Find out more by going to www.harrydentforecast.com. There's a very short time to take advantage of this dark window, so go to www.harrydentforecast.com to learn more.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. Just finished talking about the NBA. Now let's move on to other leagues, as it's official now that the Raiders will not be playing at Oracle Park, as the Niners have not accepted their territorial rights. So most likely the Raiders will be playing either still in Oakland at the Coliseum or at Levi's Stadium. So that whole thing just did not work out, which you expected, which I kind of expected too. Just based on the fact that, like, why would the Niners let go of their territorial rights to a rival of the Raiders? But now it all comes down to we still don't have a home for the Raiders. But to me, it feels like it's almost a foregone conclusion that it's going to go down in Oakland. They're going to stay in Oakland for one more year.
Yeah, possibly. We don't know where the Raiders are going to play, but they won't play at Oracle Park. I think they likely play at Levi's Stadium or the Oakland Coliseum.
I don't see any other place they could possibly be, to be completely honest with you.
Yep.
And if they do find another place, I'll be completely shocked. This will be like a last-minute thing. But they're kind of in dire straits now finding a home, because I don't know how they're going to have Oakland say come back, because Oakland seems pretty upset at them, in my opinion. But we'll see how everything turns out. But yes, as of right now, they do not have a home. So we will see where the Oakland Raiders play, or the San Francisco Raiders or the Las Vegas Raiders, wherever you want to call them after this season. So we'll see how everything turns out. But what are the others? What's else on the news today? I just want to discuss that just to...
Russell Westbrook's 7th straight triple-double yesterday ties Michael Jordan.
Okay, that makes sense.
One triple-double away from the record.
For in a row?
Yep.
Okay. I was like, I'm pretty sure he's like 1 million of those by
7
now.
straight.
Yeah. He's kind of Mr. Triple-Double when you think about it. Like, when you think of triple-doubles, it's usually him. And that's also pretty good for him as well. And also looking into other news, like I don't know about this one, but it's just baseball rules that have been happening, if you want to talk about them, the changes in the baseball rules, or maybe some options. But they're talking about a universal designated hitter. So the National League will get a designated hitter. What do you think of just having one league as a designated hitter? What were your thoughts on that in the first place? Like, that's just been known for so long, but I was always kind of questioning, like, why it was only for one league in the first place.
Yeah, it is kind of silly, in my opinion. I'm just a person who believes that there shouldn't be a designated hitter.
You think pitchers should rake?
Yeah, I think pitchers should hit because they're on the field. Like, I don't know. Like, it's weird to me that there's a specialist that just hits and doesn't play the rest of the game.
My theory is, like, maybe a guy would try to throw at a pitcher or try to injure him in situations to keep him from pitching. I'm just thinking of random theories that could possibly be the reason. But maybe give more players an opportunity.
It's more exciting. The reason why they have a DH is because it's more exciting and there's more runs, right? Like, they don't want a pitcher going up with the bases loaded and striking out every single time.
Well, the thing is, pitchers have been hitting home runs recently. Pitchers have been playing,
but for the most part,
really well.
the difference between a DH and a pitcher is significant in terms of hitting the ball, right? Like,
absolutely, yeah. Well, one's, like you said, designated hitter. Just it's in the name.
There's not too many pitchers that actually can hit the ball well. I mean, even the best ones
Maybe we need to have them practice.
Yeah, but it's also a different skill, you know?
Yeah, of course.
So, I don't know if the best pitchers in the world, if they practice, if they could even do it at, like, a major league level, you know? Like, hitting-wise, they just, this might be it, you know? But
they're also talking about, like, a pitcher clock and making the game go faster because their average game time is over 3 hours, and that's an incredibly long time.
We've seen the pitcher clock. I've seen it firsthand in minor league baseball.
Did you like it?
It's interesting. It speeds up the game for sure. But
do you think it put an impact on the game itself to you? Did you notice any
No, but it makes sense at the minor league level too because the games, you don't want extremely long minor league baseball games. You want them short and sweet.
They're supposedly going to do that in the spring training as well. And we also know that's, I believe pitchers and catchers are reporting next week, if I'm not mistaken. So that's going to be very interesting. And because we still don't know anything about the biggest free agent in the market. But if you want to hear more about that, we're going to be talking about that during our baseball podcast later today. So tune into that. But
Machado and Harper are still out there. They have not signed.
It's been very, like, I wish we had, like, a day counter. It's been 100 and some odd days since they've signed, they've been free agents. But it's one of these moments in where just, like, make up your mind already. Like, it's getting crazy. It's getting too much now. Like, it's almost getting to a point where it's like no one cares where they sign anymore.
Yeah, I don't really know.
And apparently for Harper, I mean, there's supposed mystery teams bidding on him now, so legitimately we have no idea where he's going to go. Yeah, it almost was like a conclusion he was going to the Phillies or maybe back to the Nationals or something, or maybe in the White Sox, who knew, but now we just honestly have no clue.
Yeah. We'll see there, but going back to the DH, like, I don't know. I feel like if you're on the field, if you're in the lineup, you have to play in the field. So it is weird. It's always been weird.
I feel like that's fair. And actually, in other news, football-wise, Nick Foles has opted out of his contract.
He has.
He's going to be.
He has paid the $2 million to not be under contract any further. So
probably going to be chump change by what he's going to get signed for in the offseason, most likely.
Well, he'll get at least $25 million because that's a franchise tag.
Mm-hmm. Which would you waste a franchise tag on a backup quarterback in theory? He's more than a backup quarterback. I get that.
I mean, they would do it to trade him. They wouldn't. They're not franchising him to keep him.
Right. But what do you do?
They don't have the money, to be honest with you. Like, they really don't have the money.
They have the lowest caps. They have the most in debt.
They're going in the negative to franchise him, which means they're going to have to make a number of moves to get in the green. And when they do that, then at that point they'll probably trade him for draft picks. They just don't want to lose his value, which I understand, but they're in a tough spot.
Yes. And like you said, they're the lowest when it comes to in debt. When it comes to the salary cap, I believe they're like in the 20 millions in the red, if I'm not mistaken. Last time I checked, at least. And with that, it's a serious concern of like, will it even like you can't really do anything for agency regardless because of your cap space. You're in the red. You can't do anything. You're stuck. And the question is like, and then you're getting the fans' concerns of you should keep Foles. He's the winning guy. Get rid of Wentz, and you're in a tight bond. You're in a rock and a hard place, in my opinion, when it comes down to it. But obviously, you're going to go with Wentz. They've already said they're going with Wentz. But the question is, are you going to let him walk, or are you going to keep him and put a franchise tag on him, and then look to trade him? There's a lot of different options when it comes down to it.
Yep.
And honestly, I think there's too many options. And overall, like they sound like an easy choice. It's one's going to be the right choice, one's going to be the wrong choice, but you're going to have doubters predicting that either way. Yes, last time I did check, they're $12.1 million below the cap, so that's incredibly bad, and that is the lowest. The only ones in the red as well are the Jaguars at 3.3, but right now, minus 12 is $12 million in the red is insane, incredibly, in the NFL. So definitely things to consider. And then if they franchise tag him, like you said, that's $25 million. I'm assuming that makes the cap space worse, in theory, no?
Uh-huh.
So they're going to be even more in the red if they franchise tag him. But again, that's all up to what the Eagles decide. So honestly, this might, like we've seen one Super Bowl for the Eagles. I think that's going to be it for the time being in the foreseeable future, in my opinion.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, I wonder what the market will be, to be honest. But I'm sure they'll get a couple second-round picks for Foles.
I don't see anything more than a second-round pick, in my opinion.
Well, a guy like Alex Smith got traded for 2 second-round picks. I think Foles has more upside than what Alex Smith had when he got traded for 2 second-round picks. Foles also still relatively young.
But are you like the Panthers that go for that since Cam Newton's going to be out for most likely the whole season?
I don't do it if I'm the Panthers, no.
I'm just throwing out names. I'm throwing out
Jacksonville, New York, Denver.
But it looks like Jacksonville is going to go for a quarterback in the draft.
Maybe.
So
we don't really know that. We don't know what anybody's going to do, honestly.
Well, supposedly there's 2 top 10 teams that are in love with Haskins, the Ohio State quarterback, and that very well might be them. That was my assumption when I first heard that news. But like, it could be the Buffalo Bills. It could be the Miami Dolphins.
Well, the Bills just signed Josh Allen, or they drafted Josh Allen in the first round, so they won't be going for Nick Foles.
Well, I was saying more along the lines of just as a backup because Josh Allen's been in and out of the lineup with an injury, so they might have to have a guy that can take over the reins while he's
I would be
out.
shocked if that happened, too. You don't give up those high picks for a backup quarterback. Now, a team like Denver, Jacksonville, those got to be 2 right away.
The thing is, they just signed Case Keenum themselves, so
they can get out of that for $9 million. They don't have to pay him the rest of his money. Yeah, that's a much more likely scenario though than Buffalo because you got a first-round pick. You just spent a first-round draft pick.
I'm just saying, based off the fact that Allen is just still lingering from that injury this season. So,
well, we finished the year, right?
Yeah, but again, he seems to be he was in that lineup for the whole season. So and again, that line, he's going to get tackled a lot more. So that, I believe it was a hip, if I'm not mistaken. That hip might get banged up a little bit more than usual.
Yeah. If that were to happen, I think a general manager would lose his job. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. A lot of weird things can happen in the NFL.
Yeah. Well, there's all colors like there's Cincinnati with their new head coach. That's a quarterback's coach. Maybe he'll look for Nick Foles.
Cincinnati could be a place.
Yes. There's still a lot of options for him, I'm sure.
Well, I mean, Washington has got to be an obvious place too.
Mm-hmm.
So
But if they franchise tag him, will they
maybe
trade?
the Raiders? Maybe the Raiders.
Maybe, that one's a big toss-up.
Well, John Gruden has liked veteran quarterbacks before. He's preferred them over young quarterbacks in his past. He's had more success with them in his past. Maybe the Raiders offer a second-round pick. Maybe they don't have one this year.
And this is all assumption that the Eagles will franchise tag him.
Maybe the Raiders offer them their last first-round pick.
If
for
they
Nick Foles.
franchise tag him, I don't think they're trading him in the same division with the Redskins. So that would hurt the Redskins' chances of taking Foles. But again, this offseason is going to be very interesting. I believe all this can go down by the end of February, if I'm not mistaken. This is when everything's going to go haywire, where all the moves are going to be made. So we'll see how that happens at the end of it. But right now, all we know is that Foles has opted out of his contract. He can either be a free agent or they could franchise tag him, and now the ball is in the Philadelphia Eagles' court.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Also, did you hear a story about a mountain lion who attacked a runner?
I did not hear this.
A mountain lion attacked a runner in Colorado, I believe it was, and the runner strangled the mountain lion to death.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it is a scenario that sometimes runners can get themselves into just because of, especially like ultra-marathon runners.
Sign that man to the UFC.
But yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting, pretty wild. Other than that, I think that's it.
I feel like
for
if a man can choke out and kill a lion by, you said choking him?
Yeah, he choked him out.
I'm pretty sure he can probably face a UFC fighter.
Possibly, yeah.
I'm thinking a lion is more dangerous than a UFC fighter. Well, maybe not. I'm not sure. But that seems to me that's a pretty badass thing to do. You could probably get a shot in the UFC.
Yep.
But yeah, that should be our show. Anything else you want to remark?
That's it.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Please tune us in tomorrow. We'll have the end of the trade deadline. Hopefully more trades go down today, so we have stuff to talk about tomorrow. But as always, I'm Jeff Malinoff. That's Mark Souza, and we'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.